All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our spring 2025 edition of the Capstone Project presentations. This semester, we have both web and software and data and analytics students presenting their projects. So our agenda for the evening, we will have two groups go, take a brief intermission, and then have our last three groups go. Any questions for me before we get started? Okay. In that case, Welding Data Team, you can take it away.
All right. So hello, everybody. We are the Welding Data Group, and we're proud to say that we are the first team to take on this project. So our product owner for this project was Mike Lovkey, the welding instructor here at WCTC. I'm Brandon, the team lead, and for this project, I focus primarily on communication, project organization, and a lot of behind-the-scenes work.
And I'm Jacob. I worked more on the dashboard design and the web application. So currently the welding classes here at WCTC rely on software that's provided by Lincoln Electric Group called Checkpoint. It's a software solution that was intended for a production environment, not an academic one. So that current feedback loop is slow and inefficient. And that's kind of a big deal. Welding is a very hands-on skill, and timely feedback makes a huge difference in how quickly students can improve. So our goal was to build a user-friendly dashboard to improve weld feedback speed. So right now, each student will make a weld. They stand in line with 3 to 4 other students. That instructor will then physically measure the weld every linear inch. And then that student will get feedback. And then that process repeats itself.
All right, so this is what the WCTC instructors are working with currently today for welding. And as you can see, it's filled with detailed stats, which is really good for industrial environments, but not very friendly for a classroom setting. Currently, there's no clear way to track student progress whatsoever or quickly understand weld quality. And the interface is complicated, overwhelming, especially for instructors who are trying to give real-time feedback or for students getting familiar with the welding process in general. And what's missing is a tool that's simple, informative, and designed with teaching in mind first. And that's where we came in to build a solution to this issue.
So as Brandon mentioned, we designed a dashboard specifically for a learning environment, one that was focused, clean, and easy to use for both students and instructors. What you're seeing now is the actual dashboard in use. It's organized by welding booth. It shows just the key information that an instructor would need to provide feedback. And so right away, you can see how much simpler and more focused it is. We intentionally limited that dashboard to just the most relevant data so that the screen wouldn't be cluttered. Everything is organized by booth, and then the modals will pop up to provide more detailed information if it's needed. So this gives the instructor a quick snapshot of what's actually happening in the lab, and then it helps students understand their own progress just a little bit better.
So now I'm going to talk about challenges for a bit. I'm only going to cover 2 of them briefly. One of the biggest challenges for us early on was learning the language of welding, because neither of us had any welding experience whatsoever coming into this. So we had to spend time researching and understanding terminology and what everything actually meant. And something pretty cool that we were able to do was go in person, and Mike taught us how to weld ourselves. So we got a little trial run there and helped us visualize exactly what we were working on. And this challenge went both ways. While we were learning about welding, Mike was learning about understanding how our dashboards worked, how the data flows through the system, and how we structured our database. And it took a lot of back and forth clarification to make sure we were all aligned and speaking the same language, technically and practically. So another challenge that I want to cover was daylight savings time. And we noticed at one point that the welds in our database, they weren't matching up with the class schedule, and only to find out that this issue came from the time zone shift when daylight savings time hit. So the unfortunate part to all this is that we both figured this issue out independently, but we solved it separately before realizing we were working on the same issue. So both of these experiences really enforced just how important communication was in a group setting. And we learned to be proactive, clarify expectations earlier on, ask more questions up front, double check assumptions, and not only with Mike, but with each other as well. And one of the hardest parts of this project for me was figuring out how to connect all the different pieces of data that came from separate and different sources. It almost felt like working on a giant puzzle. We had data coming in from weld machines, data coming in from class schedules, and they didn't always fit together perfectly. So what you're seeing on the screen here is the relationships between the different tables. The tricky part was finding the right connectors here. Things like booth numbers, timestamps, and operator IDs, so that the system could properly match each weld to the correct student and correct class session, which is something that Checkpoint does not currently offer. The process involved a lot of trial and error, even more attention to detail, especially when it came to checking how times were recorded and how booths were labeled. But for my favorite part about this assignment, was really just seeing everything come together in the end. It's one thing to talk through ideas and kind of sketch out what we want on paper, but when we saw the actual dashboard working, pulling in real data and showing clear insights, that's when everything really clicked. There was a huge sense of pride for me with what we built. We learned a ton about welding, technology, and teamwork. And now we're seeing potential for real impact. And Jacob will continue on the next slide.
So the hardest part for me was building the system that handles weld data uploads through the web app. We wanted instructors to be able to grab a file, click upload, and then have that system organize and store everything behind the scenes with no manual steps, no confusion. So to make that happen, I had to write the logic that would clean that data, check for errors, and then match everything up with the right class. It felt a lot like designing a self-checkout system, super simple on the outside, but with a lot going on under the hood to get it working smoothly. So this part really pushed me to think like a real-world developer, building something that people could actually use. And then on the flip side, my favorite part of the project was designing the dashboard itself. I really enjoyed figuring out how to make it not only look good, but actually work well. So I wanted a clean layout, I wanted clear icons, and just the right amount of information on the screen. It was a fun challenge to think through that user experience. What should somebody see first? What should they be able to click on? And then how can we make it intuitive, especially for instructors who don't have time to dig through all of that data?
So Jacob and I, we formulated many ideas for improving this project in the future. As I mentioned earlier, we are the first people to work on it. So we already began with the process of documentation for the next team that takes on after us. One of the things that will be added to this project in the future, hopefully, real-time monitoring. Another thing is automatic weld scoring would be really nice for Mike to see, and an ability for Mike to leave comments on different students' welds so that they could have more feedback and quicker feedback on their quality of weld. And at this point, if there are any questions for us, we would love to answer.
I wanted to ask, is all the data imported manually or is any of that automated yet?
So for the database, it's all manual. We imported using Excel and CSV files. However, for the website, Jacob was able to work out a more automated import much faster. It's not, you still have to go into Checkpoint and download the data and upload it, but at least you don't have to clean the file or change anything with the file. It automatically sorts out what it needs in the website.
That's pretty cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to add that when we had started the project, we had some bad assumptions that we were able to get the real-time data live at that point in time, and found out that we were not. So that's been a project that's underway, and we had to do a lot of configuration changes on the welders and work with our network team on campus. So after the semester ends, we're actually going to be configuring the welders to send live data. So the next group will be able to read live data.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment on how cool this is. You know, as you'd said, this is a really impactful application that you guys have got started for Mike and his team over there to be able to really improve and have the data do something. And it's something we've been thinking about here on campus for a while, is how do we, I mean, these machines over there are creating all these data, and how do we actually make good use of it? So really nice job, guys.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.
Now I'll stop talking.
Also, kudos to both of you for like actually going and sitting down with your client and learning how to weld. I think that's fabulous because
Thank you.
it's such an important skill to make sure that you really understand the needs of your customers. So that is fabulous and good work, you guys.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool that you guys learned to do it. Were you able to establish positive correlation though between some of the data you saw and actually good welds versus bad welds, to the point where like Mike would be comfortable just looking at the data that you're providing and go, yeah, I know that's when I walk over there and visually inspect it or cut it open, I know that it's going to be a good weld with good penetration and all that stuff?
Yeah, so we didn't want to present a lot of the behind the scenes work that we had built up for the next group. This is what we currently have working on our website, but we did a lot of work in Power BI, which is a more technical thing, and I didn't want to confuse everyone, but you can see if the weld was quality, mediocre, or bad. We have that code written out. We just haven't implemented it into the website yet.
Okay.
Any final questions for the team? All right. Nice work, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, our course offering analysis team.
Okay. Things were hiding on me, so I'm sorry. All right, so we are the course offering analysis team, or we call it the course offering project. My name is Andrew Byshinsky.
My name is Jacob Kyle. And to go into our kind of what our project was. So the goal of our project was to, decide how many sections of each course should be offered in a given semester. So currently, what each dean of students has to do is to sort through all the different Excel files, doing manual checking, reviewing all the different spreadsheets, trying to make sense of what could be very inconsistent data. So we wanted to take that data and that time-consuming process and make it into something that is not as time-consuming, and it can be repeated year after year for ease of use. At the heart, we want to take different data sets, including like different enrollments, current offerings, prerequisites, and take all that data using different analytical processes to identify key trends such as enrollment patterns or course demand shifts to recommend different courses. And this tool would allow us to make those recommendations, essentially answering the questions, how many sections should we offer and when should we offer it? The product owner was Ali Yerger, who is the Associate Dean for the IT programs here at WCDC.
So then we go into the purpose, why we had to do this project. A lot of it had to do with messy data. There's a lot of different data providers that have info in different forms, different layouts. Because of that, there was a lot of hours that were put into it. I believe Ali told us she puts in over 40 to 50 hours a year just scheduling classes. And then there's a chance of over or under scheduling different courses. So there might not be enough courses for the number of students that need them, or there might be too many where there's only like 2 or 3 students in each section. So the whole process is really kind of inefficient. There's a lot of lost productivity that our product owner could actually be doing, and probably has better time, can use their time better with something else. So instead of scheduling this and just going forward.
So what does our solution do? So it identifies 4 key features between recommendations, visualizations, making sure it's in a centralized location, and the ease of use of the tool. So in terms of the recommendations, we want to provide how many sections to schedule based off of the current, enrollment trends that you have, visualizations of past offerings and trends that you may see with the data. So like if the previous year you had 3 courses, but all of them weren't filled that much, maybe switch it down to 2 courses to hope to have higher enrollments in those 2 courses. Centralized location, bringing together all the different information. When we first started this project, we were given above 10 Excel files that we had to sort through in terms of different data. And it can be very confusing switching between all these different sheets of data. So bringing it all into one location can help save time and making it easy to use. So year over year, you can reuse this process, and hopefully after testing, it can expand to more than just the IT department.
So then when we have our final product, what value does it provide? First thing is it's clean data. We transform all that messy data so that it's easily digestible in the new tool that we are providing. So that would have less time spent scheduling. We'll be able to get the real-time data in one place and make quicker decisions instead of going back and forth between all the different spreadsheets. This will also give an idea of what what a number of sections should be produced per semester, so that reduce the risk of over or under scheduling courses. And then with everything tied together, it makes it more efficient. Data that's exported out from all the different data providers, transform and easily digestible, so that it becomes a more efficient process and take up less time. So then, with some of the challenges we had, at least for my standpoint, one of the problems I had was trying to figure out what multiple courses are. So with the CRNs, which is a course reference number, if there are instances where there's Zoom and in-person classes, but the CRNs are two separate ones. So it took me a while to figure out, okay, how can we show that it's just one section? So at the top here, you see that this are all the Intro to SQL classes for this last semester. It shows all the different sections, but you can tell this one in the middle here with the L on Zoom, one's in person and one's on Zoom. So what I did is I had them combined together, and then it would show that it's either a dual course or it's a single course. I tried to get it in person, but I couldn't get that. So move on to Jacob.
Then a challenge that I ran into was working on how many classes you should recommend. So the biggest variable was, trying how can I take all this data from these different spreadsheets and, work it to give recommendations. There's a lot of testing, different formulas to come up with something. And the image on the screen is showing, I broke it down by class, how many classes per different term or semester you should be offering. So at the very top, it shows the database programming, it should offer one in the fall and then one in the spring for that particular year. That's kind of the biggest challenge that I ran into over the course of this project.
So then both of us actually had a challenge trying to figure out how we're going to start. Like I said, we had a lot of ugly spreadsheets and ugly layouts that were given to us. This is one example. This has all the different it has all the different programs, and then the head counts, graduates, things like that. So you can't throw this into something like Power BI. But what we did is we transformed everything and made it more digestible to be able to upload into Power BI or something to that nature. So this is just one example. Jacob's going to give you another.
The second example we have was this Excel file called SLED. This file, unfortunately, was filled with lots of undigestible or unneeded data where it can throw off different, recommendations. So, one thing that we worked on was cleaning up that data, making it more digestible. And this is a process that is repeatable. So when Allie takes this course, she can update this data and put it into the different formats in Power BI to update that data for a live recommendation. And this is one of the 5 dashboards that we had. This is something that Andrew worked on.
So this is the by courses. At the top, you see that there's course name, course term, program name. Those are all slicers. So you can pick course name, and it gives you all the data on that course. Same thing with term, or if you just want to see a certain program. In the middle there, you see the average enrollment and course count. So it just gives you the count of the number of courses and the average enrollment for each section. And then in the middle, there's the day and night split where it will show that it's either day or evening class. And then it'll give you a count. And on the side there, it'll be the presented type. So if it's in a building like L, it'll be in person. And if it's in Zoom, it'll say Zoom. So it has a count of those. And then on the bottom there, there's some charts based off of the enrollment by section or by program. So in the first one, it just gives you a head count of the number of students in each program. And this is important because then it might if they're trending up or you see that there's another program that's being offered, then you might want to add another section on it. And then in the middle, there's the admitted applicants. Again, this is just a good visualization to see if maybe there's more applicants in each program. So that might want to schedule another section. And then I also put number of graduates per program, just in case that there might be a lot of graduates and you might not need one or more of the higher level courses. And then at the bottom there, this is what the recommended number of sections will show. So since the top set is for advanced SQL, it's given the recommendation of one for the fall and one for the spring. And that seems to work out, and it's kind of how it's been with that course. So
And one more of our difference dashboards that we had was enrollment and capacity by course. So this is something to look over previous years. You can select the different years to see what was offered. So rather than going back and trying to find the previous year's schedule and what you offered, you can come to this course and see exactly how many courses you offered and how full those courses were, rather than trying to look through 4 different spreadsheets for that. One other dashboard that we had was enrollment by class type. So what are you offering nowadays versus what you were offering, let's say in 2022. So in 2022 we had a lot more in-person classes. In the past year, we've been offering a lot more Zoom and hybrid courses where it's both in person and on Zoom for the data program. So this is just something to see, by course, what you've been offering so you can make an informed decision for the future courses. And I don't know if Ellie wanted to talk about anything that she experienced with us, but otherwise we're more than happy to take any questions that you may have.
I'll just say this is for those of you who've never had to try to schedule 6 programs worth of classes. It is quite a challenge, and it's a big jigsaw puzzle. And so this tool is going to really take a lot of the sort of grunt work of it off of my plate so that I can really focus on making sure that there's nuances that the data can't necessarily take into account, and being able to just say, okay, these are the ones I know I need to be able to offer. And then, okay, so now what are the little things that the data doesn't necessarily show that I happen to know? And so really this is going to be a really great time saver for me. And I'm just about ready to schedule for next spring. So those of you, all the students in the Zoom, we're always scheduling 9 to 10 months ahead. So I'm already having to try to schedule for next spring. And so the timing on this is perfect. So thank you to both Andrew and Jacob for their work on this.
And do we have any questions for us?
So I'm going to ask one so that we have one. What do you think was the class or the skill set that helped you most with this project? And not necessarily just the technical, but from any aspect of the project.
Probably the one that comes to mind for me is data modeling. Um, just figuring out how the different spreadsheets can fit together and have different relationships for each one. That's one that hit me that I think of right away.
I would agree with Andrew. But otherwise, I could say advanced SQL, working to combine all the data in a efficient manner and making sure that everything lines up. As a lot of the different spreadsheets did not have the same formats for all the different types of data. So, in one spreadsheet, it could have a dash in between the course number, and while another spreadsheet, there's no dash. So it's figuring out things like that. Basically making and cleaning the data up. I guess that would have helped me.
Nice crash course in DAX too.
I have a question. If you guys could go back and take another attempt or do it again, what would be something that you did differently, or what would be a different approach you would take?
I think personally, I probably would have tried to work on the recommendations a little bit sooner, just because I didn't get to work with DAX as much as I would have liked. We took a lot of time cleaning the data to make sure that the data was, I don't want to say perfect, but perfect, before stepping into, hey, how do we actually approach the technical side of, how am I going to offer this many courses? So I think, I don't want to say time management, but, working on some of the key aspects a little bit sooner, I think that would have made a big difference for me in this project.
Yeah, we took a lot of time trying to understand what the spreadsheets are and just cleaning them up. It was pretty difficult to get through that.
Any other questions for the team? All right. Well, thank you, team. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, but I do want to take our intermission now. And I'm going to let the product owners from the next team know that we are a little bit ahead of schedule. But we will resume, let's give ourselves a 15-minute intermission, and we'll resume about 6:50 then.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Nathan. My partner is Ethan. Give a wave, Ethan. Say hi.
Hello.
And our IS project is Volunteer DB. For our project, our product owners are Kate L. and Morgan G. They are basically the risk management team, and what they track is any volunteers that go to the school. They have to make sure all the risk so basically they put all data into an Excel sheet, and then they have to maintain that every single volunteer has completed their background checks, especially for therapy dogs. But their request for us is to convert their Excel file into an Access database for forms and reports. So the big project overview is, like I said before, this is requested by WCTC's risk management team. This was basically designed to replace a messy Excel system for tracking their volunteers and create it into Microsoft Access to use their real-world data and use it for reporting. So we basically create forms and reports to track anything that's missing throughout those volunteers, those therapy dogs, or anything that goes with host families. And yeah. So pretty much our initial challenges. Number one, volunteer data was stored across multiple data sheets within Excel. It had pretty much inconsistent formats. So what they gave us was 3 different data sets, and we had to make sure how are we going to merge it all into one. So we had to make sure that each and every piece of data was consistent throughout and make sure they all fit together. For number 2, this is specifically more for our product owners. The staff, which is risk management team, had to go through a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of data across their Excel sheets and manually search through, okay, who in any volunteers had missing background checks, who did not submit this, or is there any funny data within anything? Number 3, the data types and field names didn't match with Access requires. So basically, it wasn't compatible to what we were trying to transfer from Excel to Access, and we had to change that most of the time. Number 4, risk for duplicate records or incomplete background check tracking. So if we were to insert any new data, we don't want to duplicate anything because there's no 2 volunteers of the same name or anything like that.
So I'll start by talking about our approach. So we started by reviewing and analyzing all 3 Excel tabs we were given to understand what data we had. From there, we focused on finding shared fields between the 3 tabs like names, date of birth, contact info, as well as what might be unique and set the Excel tabs apart. We then created temporary tables as a staging area to safely clean and validate the data. From there, we took the data and designed forms, queries, and reports to assist with their day-to-day duties at risk management. And we developed a step-by-step process to import the data accurately and without duplication, so they only have to do it once. So for this slide, I'd like to first explain what normalization is. Normalization is like organizing a messy closet. Instead of throwing everything into one big pile, you group similar items together, shirts in one drawer, shoes on a rag, socks in a bin. In a database, it means breaking big, messy tables into smaller, focused ones to avoid repetition and keep everything neat. This makes it easier to find, update, and manage the data without getting confused or making mistakes. So we did that for all of our Excel data, as well as mapping some of the relationships. We put it into Microsoft Access because Access is a campus available Microsoft product and it doesn't require any maintenance, making an ideal choice for a database for very few users, in this case, just Kate and Morgan. This organization kind of prevents redundancy and supports efficient searching through the data. It also makes the database scalable and easier to manage over time once all the data is cleaned up. So this is the data that we cleaned up. It shows a snapshot of the raw Excel data, came in varying formats, sometimes some inconsistencies and missing values, such as in the date of birth and application date not being in date format. We cleaned up and standardized critical fields, renamed the columns, ensured that each record had enough information to be linked properly in the final database.
And so as we get to now to the database structure, me and Ethan had to figure out how are we going to take all this data from Excel and transfer it to Access. And we had to map out, okay, what does each individual data piece go to? And so we created 9 tables in total. And then we show here that this is what Access looks like pretty much. It's on the left side, you see an image of kind of similar to what you see in an Excel kind of sheet, but instead for this, it's a lot easier because this is for making reports or forms, and we'll get to that later. But on the right side, you see that this is all the data types pretty much. So if it were to assign any column, you can only put in a certain amount of text, any numbers that are affiliated with any of the columns. And this is basically an overview of what the whole database structure looks like. In short term, it's called ERD. It's an entity relationship diagram, and it shows every key piece to each relationship as to primary keys and foreign keys. And this basically shows how are all the tables pretty much connected.
So this was our biggest challenge in our project, and it was creating these queries in the correct sequence to move data from our temporary tables into our final database. They had to run in a specific order, and they were challenging to get exactly correct because it's different using Access than a lot of other database tools. It's much less forgiving. And at the end, we were able to maintain referential integrity, ensure clean connected records across tables, and we also use update queries afterwards to fill in some extra details like roles and relationships. So it took up a good time of our project, but it is very solid and we have some great tables. So from there, we're able to create a form and reports. So here's a form for a person list. It's color coded, just like how it was in the Excel data. This makes data easier to view and update. So you can view it and also update it from the forms. We built in filters and drop-down boxes to allow users to search by department, event, or any other criteria. Ultimately, these tools make the system very user-friendly and easy to operate for someone without database experience. Here's an example of one of our reports. It shows all the volunteers tied to a specific event, which will greatly aid event coordinators in planning ahead to who's attending, their contact information. We built this using queries that pulled data from all different tables and sheets, and the report is formatted for easy printing, so they'll be able to print it and share it with anyone who's related to the event, operating the event, any staff that need the information.
So a really cool thing that Access allows us to do is create these things called data entry forms. And what this is allowed for the product owners to use is if anybody, a new volunteer comes to the school, they're allowed to put in any new information into this data entry form with just putting in all their information that's relevant. And also a really cool thing that we'll show later on too. But if you see in the photo, in contact name, if you were to put any new volunteer, all you have to do is just click that combo box, what it's called, affiliated with that contact name, and it will show who you want to pick. And if there was no campus contact that's listed on there, all you have to do is simply push this new campus contact button, and it'll take you to a whole new data entry form and put in the new campus contact information. So the user-friendly import process, we created a documentation for our product owners to insert their real data into our database. And it's basically a step-by-step process. We've shown images as to how they can put in their data into the database that we created from our experience. What we learned. Normalization improves reporting accuracy, keeping things pretty much clean and nice throughout, whether it's Excel or Access. It's good to keep that your data is organized and clean. Forms and filters help real users. For example, the forms that we showed before, this will really help our product owners to navigate specifically what they want to see, any background checks that are failed, or anything that's relevant to them at the time. Using Scrum helps project organization and time management. So throughout the course of 16 weeks that me and Ethan have been working on this project, Scrum has been a very nice tool to help us maintain what tasks are assigned to us and make sure that we're able to get our tasks on time so we don't have any backup as to make sure that our project is done on time. Communication with non-technical users, clients is key. It's very good to show, for example, like many people that are in this call right now don't know exactly what we're talking about, but it's good to keep in a way for explaining things to non-technical users what we're doing and explaining what key terms are. And before we get to this slide, I'm going to pass it over to Ethan real quick, and he's going to give you a real quick demo of what the interface looks like in Access.
So here we have the final product. We're able to take all these Excel tables and condense it into 4 forms. So here's all the data entry. So if you wanted to add or edit a new volunteer, you could look through all the information. And this is the drop-down box that was mentioned before. It shows all the campus contacts. If you want to add a new one, you can do it here. And all the information that's tied to the person can be edited right here. We have some of the reports for dogs, so anything you might need to know about therapy dogs, such as expired rabies vaccines, or just a button click away. We have a host family, so it can show any missing applications, background checks. This is our volunteer and event page. This report is very helpful and requested by our product owners to be able to sort through the event and the date, and then it will show every volunteer and their information for that date, and you can click a button to quickly print it off. Then we also have some annual volunteer statistics. So you type in the year that you'd like to see, and it will show all the events, the age groups, the totals, titles. So everything is very quick and easy to find in our database. And why this matters, why this project matters, why we did this is to save risk management, some time and stress. It creates a reliable way to structure and manage the data. It reduces manual entry and provides our product owners with the ability to automatically generate reports. It helps staff, event staff, make informed decisions with clean, accessible data. And we've also laid a solid foundation for future expansions, such as automating email notices or maybe online forms. And that is our presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to thank Nikki for helping us out all throughout the semester. I'd like to thank our product owners for working so closely with us, and our classmates for giving us our time and attention. Everyone else who decided to attend today around campus, we're very appreciative, and we'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Before we go to questions, I just wanted to see if Kate and/or Morgan would be willing to say a little bit about their experience working with the team this semester.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nathan and Ethan. You guys have done great work. This is so needed. This has been something that has been really labor intensive for our department, and this will help us to get a better sense of how many volunteers we're dealing with for different events, where we're running into crunch time, and help us really, like, at a glance, be able to see where we have gaps and we need to do follow-up. So you guys have been really great about communicating with us and staying in touch throughout the session. And we really appreciate all the hard work you guys have done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was our pleasure.
I agree as well with Kate. Honestly, everything that you guys have done, you have been super, super professional with us. You get back to us at a really good time. You guys have been wonderful to work with, very respectful, and I really appreciate all you guys' help very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any questions for our team?
I think I have one, but it might be something that Kate or Morgan can answer. With the forms that were created, is that something that can be attached to slates so that the data that you're getting from the event organizers comes to you more clean than it has in the past?
That's a good question, Trina. I'm not sure because I've worked very, very little with Slate. I don't have access to anything in Slate right now, so I couldn't tell you. But whatever we could do to streamline that process would be great.
Right? Same thing with releases. If this could expand and include some of that, that
Right.
would be fabulous.
Right. That would help expedite things on both sides.
Every time I thought I was going to have a smart question for you two, you answered it. So, yay.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and ask, what was your favorite parts of this project to both of you?
Anything would you like to
Go.
start?
Actually, no, you can go first.
All right. I'd say my favorite parts of the project were honestly like building something from scratch and being able to like, especially like the beginning stages, like visualizing the project, making like ERDs, like diagrams, to help get this started. And then I suppose my second favorite part would be like making these reports, making like the interface and making them all cleaned up and polished looking. It was I guess like going through the project and working through, even like the roadblocks where it felt really good to be able to get through them and achieve it and create a usable product. So having something that you can use at the end of the day gives me a great sense of pride, and that's probably my favorite part of the project.
I'd have to add on to what Ethan said about starting it from scratch. It's something that I haven't experienced, and I'm sure Ethan hasn't experienced either, is building something pretty much that you're going to create for the real world to use. And we've never done that before. And we want to make sure that this project was going to help, especially Kate and Morgan, for them to make their lives a whole lot easier and expand in the future. But also to add on is if whenever you're in like some sort of roadblock or just something that's very hard to pretty much get accomplished, and when you eventually figure it out, it's just like that stimulant of, yes, I finally figured it out and we're all set and good to go. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sure.
When it comes to creating a solution for a client, can you speak upon how does it feel and what are the steps that you take to figure out where the need is, the business need? Because that's what this comes down to, right? Is providing an end user business need.
Well, I think I can speak on that. How we were able to do that, because we have like a rough idea of what they want, right? But we don't have any specific ideas of which reports they would find helpful. We never worked in risk management or with liabilities or anything like that. So what we did is at the very beginning, we planned very regular meetings with Kate and Morgan, and we just asked questions, so many questions, even questions that, we might not even need the answers to. And we took lots of notes and we're able to like structure through it like, hey, this is what's important. This is what we can do. And from there, we decide like, okay, this is what we think the end user needs. Let's check back in with them and confirm that that's what they need or actually want. So from there, we were able to like limit it down even further to specific focus areas, such as the printable like event reports, who's all tied to an event, and necessary information for liabilities. And basically, that's how we did it, was communication. Lots of meetings, lots of sitting down, and lots of rehashing what we think, because we can think the project is gonna go one way, but it ended up being lots of surprises, like what was actually important, annual reports and stuff. At the beginning, we thought maybe there'd be a bunch of graphs and charts, but we realized it wasn't really necessary, and that's basically how we figured it out.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the team? Okay. Thank you, team.
All right, thank you guys.
And Vehicle Vault team, you are up next.
Right, give me just a minute to start screen sharing. So hello everyone, I'm Lillian. You can just call me Lily, and I'm the Scrum Master for the third group to work on Vehicle Vault. I believe we had one last spring, last fall, and now we're the third one. So all of us are actually web and software developers, and we should all graduate roughly by the end of the year. I've got 4 years of experience in coding with expertise in front-end web development. And I'm currently working freelance as a backend developer, creating plugins in Rust. And I'm going to pass the metaphorical mic on to Yuan.
Hi, I'm Yuan. I work in both front-end and back-end development. My expertise is in software development and web development. I enjoy creating complete solutions that connect user interface with server systems.
I am Gavin. I work mostly with the front end and the back end, kind of a little bit of everywhere for this project. And I also just listed some skill sets that we're using along this project as well.
All right, I'm Dylan. I mostly work with the backend and the database for this project. And then I have also helped develop a Discord bot that is currently in 400 plus different Discord servers.
All right. And then for our product owners, we have from risk management, Kate Laufenberg and Morgan Gergel. And I know they're both in here right now, and I'm not sure if Mark is, but we also have Mark Resnick from Applied Tech.
Intro to our kind of application, the business problem that it solved, the main business problem that our product owners were looking to solve here was finding a efficient way to manage campus vehicles across different departments, different staff, different users, being able to manage vehicles effectively, manage a few things within the vehicle information as well, like maintenance, driver information, as well as the information for the vehicles. They were currently using a very primitive and slow process to manage it. Mostly all manual entries, spreadsheets. It was all paperwork. It was manually manipulated information that was very inefficient and hard for them to manage.
Our system manages vehicle information, maintenance, and driver tracking. It also allows user to generate reports based on filtered information. So what value does it provide? The Vehicle Vault was designed to provide a system for managing complex vehicles in an effective way that minimizes workload for staff and users.
And then the reason we worked on Vehicle Vault this semester was mainly to remove TypeScript because the current system was not implemented very well and wasn't working too well. So the easiest way we found was to just remove it, go to a different programming language to help the program run more effectively and efficiently. There was a lot of bugs we had to go through and fix, and then we were also tasked to implement a way for users to keep track of the maintenance on the vehicles, which we have added into, and then which will then allow them to keep track of oil changes when those happen, how often they should do them. They'll keep track of that.
And to the exciting part, we have our demos. We've got a lot of stuff to show off, especially like the maintenance, as previously mentioned. So I'm going to start off with what the vehicle detail page previously looked like. We were given this when we got the project, and as a team, we decided it wasn't very clear what does what. And there was just a lot of stuff that probably needed to be updated since the basic layout hadn't really been touched in about a year. And here's the project. If I click on a vehicle real quick, we have an entirely new layout, but for the most part. The highlights are these little icons that appear to the side of each field. So they're all unique. So for weight, we have like the stereotypical weight icon. We have like 2 cars for a fleet. We thought it was pretty intuitive, this new method of storing all the information. So we have like some check marks and X's down here, just because we thought it looked significantly better. And we were also given the program with a somewhat functional dark mode. For the most part, it worked fine, but there was a couple places in which it broke the page or it just wasn't up to the standards of the rest of the program. So it just makes it dark, except it works a lot better now. And I was very proud of something I did here, where there's a little spinny icon as you switch from light to dark mode and vice versa. So, believe Ewan is going to take it away with the maintenance, or not the maintenance, the category edition.
Okay. I'll show the category management section in our vehicle about admin portal. This is an important part of our system. It helps admin manage all the data lists used in the application. So look at the top of the screen, you can see the tables for different categories. We have all 11 category tabs. Each category shows the data in the same table format. Our table has the column like ID, name, description, and action. This makes it easy for admin to learn once and use anywhere. This interface also have some useful features like a search box to find item quickly, and red trash icons to delete items, a page control at the bottom to see more items like that, and there is a add button to create new items. Let's try add a Mercedes-Benz model for GLA, and you can search it and you can see the exactly added.
All right, and we're going to pass it off to Gavin for the maintenance module that we built up.
Well, for each vehicle needed a maintenance log as well to be stored within it. Each vehicle has its own unique maintenance that is stored in a log that is organized and categorized by date, as well as keeping some information that is required for each vehicle that is on campus and what is required by the product owners to hold on to and keep information that was also previously documented manually on paper before. Each vehicle has its own maintenance log. It is connected to a database that each has its own separate entity for. So they are all separated and are updated currently within the application in real time to different users. So everyone can currently see that. Product owners can go in here and they can add maintenance logs, and they can add a date, mileage, where it was done. There is for locations some that are handled off-site, not on the campus. So you can put it if it was at WCTC or if it was off-site. And then you can also click if there was different maintenance done to it. So oil change, tire replace, coolant flush, tires rotated, and air filter replace are the ones we have in there currently. There is going to be additions to add different maintenance logs as well that you can add within there, as well as notes. So you can manually enter if it was done yesterday or if it was done today. Just whatever it is. That's all manually entered notes just in case there's something that doesn't fit within the criteria of what we did add. And then obviously it is sorted into the list right underneath, as you can see. That's the log for each vehicle that it has. It is sorted and has also the same thing as the rest of the page does, is pagination or navigation, different pages there at the bottom to kind of show all the logs and show the user exactly what was done to it and when it was done to it.
All right, and then we have Dylan to show off the managed vehicle info.
All right, so previously on the old version of the application, the editing a vehicle, it popped up as a modal, which we felt was unnecessary and would look better if it just became a new page entirely. So we went through and we turned it into just a new page for filling out the information. And the information will pre-fill with the current existing information for the vehicle that it already has. And you can go in and you can change any field singly, or you can change all the fields if you want. So for instance, if you just want to change the car to the Mercedes GLA that they showed adding into the vehicle models, we will go and make that the new vehicle it will be.
And I'm not gonna go edit all the stuff we have in the database right now. But then we also have to show off the sorting and filtering of the vehicle list.
So there was an old sort function within the search bar that let you search by everything within a vehicle, which we felt was a little too much because you could be searching for something and it would give you completely different results than what you were looking for, because it would just show all the vehicles that had that part within it somewhere. We went through and added a few filters on it, so you only be able to search by years or makes or models. And then you can also sort off of when it last had maintenance done. So if you go in here, you can do last maintenance and it'll sort off of which vehicles maintenance happened longest ago to the newest. That way you can see what vehicle needs maintenance sooner than the others.
Then we also have a way to filter by a couple extra properties that we felt probably weren't best to just have it in the search. So we have, like, you can search by filter by department. You can filter by the status. Like if you just want to see vehicles that were recently modified, you also have the option to. And that about wraps up our demos. So challenges for me. I really haven't had much experience with making APIs, so it was very interesting to do like some real backend work. And I learned a lot about how they work in general and how to get data from and put data into a database. The hardest part for me would be the edit vehicle page. I had to refactor it into a page instead of a modal, which was very time consuming as I hadn't really done anything like that before. And that was also right after we fully removed TypeScript. So there were still a few things that weren't exactly working properly that I also had to fix. But my favorite part by far would be the vehicle list that I just showed off. For most of the project, we all worked as a team, but this is something that I just did solo because I felt like I had a really creative solution and it was an opportunity to show off some of my front-end skills.
In this project, I learned how to work well with a team to finish projects. I learned how to apply the Scrum method in a real project. I also learned how to work together on the front end and back end. The hardest part for me was working with back end processing. I had to understand how to work with databases correctly. So my favorite part was working on the front end and UI changes. See the visual parts improve made me happy and excited about the project.
I'd say the main takeaway that I got from it was definitely how to work and manage within a collaborative environment. Kind of just working as a team, communicating was a big thing. So working with a team of 4, originally 5, We kind of did have some obviously like work throughs that we had to work through for the first sprint or two, probably kind of working what's called a sprint backlog, which is pretty much how we manage our tasks through the workflow of the framework called Scrum. So working how to work in that workflow, how to really manage our time effectively and make sure that we could complete our tasks effectively and then pass it on if needed to the next team member or move on to what we need to work on for each sprint and making sure that we are completing what was assigned to us and what we were delegated by the end of that goal and making sure that is completed properly and effectively. The hardest part probably for this was definitely just the environment. Having two previous groups work on this, I believe 3 in the last group, I'm not sure how many developers are in the first group. There was a lot of code to kind of go through and a lot of stuff to sift through that we kind of had to familiarize ourselves with. I believe all are familiar with a Vue front end, so it wasn't necessarily the actual syntax or the technical aspect of it that we had to familiarize ourselves with, but how large of an environment this was and really working with a large code base that has a lot involved with it and being able to find different problems and debug our own, and not only our own, but others' code as well. Favorite part was also definitely the team collaboration. I think we had a really fun time kind of in our meetings, on our weekly meetings, just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, seeing what would work well, UI changes, whether it be code, kind of figuring problems out together, not only by ourselves and just working like we had previously independently with projects, but also being able to rely on each other to solve problems and move forward as a group to making sure we're meeting our business needs of our product owners.
So I'd say one of the main takeaways for me was learning how to work collaboratively within a team and manage our time effectively and make sure everybody's, able to do something that they're good at while also learning more of some stuff that may not be the best at, because everybody's trying to learn at least something. So I did find the team collaboration pretty nice and learning. My hardest part, I'd say for me, was going through and learning how the front end of the application worked with the back end and the database, since I was mainly working on getting the database tables fixed and set up properly and helping with the API creations. I had to go through and figure out how is everything currently being sent for information back and forth. How is it all being saved currently? Is there a better way to save it? I wanted to go through that. And I'd say my favorite part would just be working on a pre-existing project and having to take time to figure out how it's currently working and seeing how other people have written code that you have to then navigate through and debug yourself.
And that about wraps up our presentation. Thank you all for listening. And before we get into questions, if our product owners would like to say anything, go right ahead.
Thanks, Lily. Sorry, I lost you guys right at the end of the demo. I kept getting frozen in Zoom and it kept crashing on me. So I missed part of the last part of the discussion about what you guys learned, but I saw most of the demo. And I know that you worked probably more closely with Mark Resnick, I think, this session than with risk management, but seeing what you guys have accomplished over the course of the semester is amazing. You guys have made some really great improvements to it. I think the maintenance piece is going to be really, really helpful to both the department owners and risk management to make sure that we're staying on top of necessary maintenance from a safety perspective, and having to, reducing kind of the effort on their part in terms of documentation and record keeping, making it as easy as possible. So thank you guys for everything you've worked on this semester. It looks wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm also on here as well. Kate and I were both actually crashing. Our Zooms kept going in and out. Our storm just ended over here. So I apologize. But like Kate mentioned, I know you worked a lot closely with Mark, but I was just messaging Kate and telling her how awesome this looks. And we are super, super excited. This looks so wonderful. It looks so neat and perfect. And you guys did a great job. Everything looks amazing, and you guys were awesome. Thank you so much for all of your help.
I think we have some former developers in the room, and I would like to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to say that the app looks wonderful. everybody on the project this semester, you all did a wonderful job. It looks really good. You should be very proud of yourselves. It is awesome. And so I spent quite a bit of time on this project as the second part of the second team that got a chance to work on it. And I would agree and am glad that you guys removed TypeScript from the app. While I feel like TypeScript is excellent for business use case to keep things sound, it's got to be implemented from the get-go correctly. And that was a big struggle for our team when we worked on the project, was figuring out how to get the things to just work. And it's not something taught in the program. And while I personally had some experience outside of school doing TypeScript, it would have been advantageous for us to have removed it earlier on. And I think, as maybe you guys know, it takes a while to get into the weeds on the project when you get into it. And that's for any project you'll ever get into it. Especially one with this kind of code base, it takes a bit. You've got to look through what's going on and figure out how to feel comfortable and where things are at. And so I'm glad that you made that choice, because it looks like your efforts paid off.
I agree, actually. I was the first developer, or rather, I was one of the first developers to make the project. And when we initially scaffolded the project, we kind of went with TypeScript because of the type safety and the way to move forward as an industry to improve it. And in this class, you kind of learn more as you go. And yeah, there's always a lot going on, especially for the Scrum Master running it. I'm sure you had to juggle all these different balls up in the air all the time, especially when you're having to deal with 5 different people. It was huge. It's a lot of people to manage. But honestly, I am amazed how this came together. It looks phenomenal. Like both groups. I don't know what happened last semester, but like just this end product getting here, it looks amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you could be here today.
Any other questions or comments or feedback for the team?
I mean, I just like to give props to Ewan. He's the one who took on the responsibility to remove TypeScript, and he got it removed pretty quickly and without breaking the entire project doing so, because stuff still worked after he removed it. I just want to give him props for taking on that hard task.
Thank you.
Patrick, I know you've gotten to see various pieces of this go. What are your thoughts, comments?
I like TypeScript, so I'm a little sad to see it go. But I understand where you're coming from, because you're right. We don't have a class that does it. So, but it's kind of cool to see it evolve over the different iterations here, and I think it keeps getting better and looking better. I think it had like looking at some of the other older projects, I think it had a stronger start from the UI perspective, and I think each term it keeps getting stronger. So I think that's really cool to see.
I agree. I've watched the 3 iterations so far, and it only keeps improving. And I was actually going to bring up TypeScript but then of course there's students that have already worked on it that brought it up for us. But I was going to say, I remember that was all the group last term talked about was how difficult that was, because it was just this random, piece of technology as part of this project that no one had seen before. So my question was, how did you guys come to the conclusion to remove it? Because you're coming in, it's a legacy project now, right? You didn't make it. You're now responsible for it. How did you all decide, or how did you come to that decision?
In short words or in long words? Short words is in a project description. And long-term perspective, we also did a review of the previous group's also Capstone projects, and we watched the video. It's one of the things we did the first day. And it seemed like across the board, although I know Thomas was a very strong advocate for keeping TypeScript, and I've heard opinions from others like Patrick that TypeScript is very great. There was a lot of problems with just any typing, pretty much putting such a broad thing on all the code that it wasn't really implemented. Like it was there, but it wasn't actually implemented. So for us to be able to just reconfigure it, we looked at kind of how long that would take. And like Dylan said, you went took up the task of that immediately. I think it was our halfway into sprint 2 is when we tackled that, and we were done by sprint 2, having TypeScript removed. So we saw it as a lot more beneficial to just remove it and work with something that we were all familiar with, so we could make better advancements than trying to do what the last group said they did the entire time, is try to work with something they have no clue what they're doing. And then I heard from one of the group members too that they like didn't get to do it to like the end of the project. They didn't feel like they made good progress. I was like, I don't want to be that group that were at the end of the project and we're like, oh, we barely made any progress.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, great work. It looks fabulous.
Any last questions for the team? All right. Nice work, Vehicle Vault team. Thank you very much. And up last, best for last, right, Cameron? SLED team.
Something like that. Let me start sharing then. What's it doing? Oh my goodness. Oh, there we are. All right. Let's get started then. Hi, I'm Cameron, Scrum. Oh, I Scrum Master for the team. For our Capstone project, we worked on the story project of SLED, which many of you are likely quite familiar with. So without further ado, this is our chapter. We had as our primary project owner, Nikki Kowalczyk, right here in the call. Thank you, Nikki, for being here. I know it's very difficult. You had to fit in into your schedule, very busy. Then, of course, there's myself. I find that I am most fluent with C++ and C#, and as well, working with people. We had Alex, who worked with JavaScript, Vue, and a number of other front-end frameworks, as well as C# and .NET Core. Dante, who himself worked with JavaScript, C#, SQL, and ASP.NET, and we further worked through that. And then additionally, we had Julia working with .NET and front-end frameworks as well. If you each would like to say hello briefly before we move on to the next slide.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad that you guys could come. So thank you for listening to this presentation. We do really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name's Dante. And thank you again, just like Alex said, for coming, listening to the presentation.
I'm Julia. I appreciate it.
All right. So a little about the SLED project. SLED is a tool used by WCTC to track completion of learning objectives in an empirical and data-driven manner. If you are unfamiliar with what a learning objective is, you could consider it a way of tracking a student's ability to perform a given task or goal. And that can be either a soft skill or a hard skill. Our goal primarily fell upon taking the existing SLED version 2's work in progress and getting it to a feature parity with the existing SLED tool, while also migrating out-of-date components to versions with an active support window. These migrations were largely necessary due to the fact that the old system used something called .NET Framework, which, despite its very similar name, is entirely incompatible with .NET Core, which has, I would say, in somewhat recent years, become the de facto standard for the industry working in C#. And so, some of our accomplished goals, as you can see on our presentation, are listed here, but the two biggest ones, and possibly some of the more difficult ones, was the migration to .NET Core 8, which introduced a number of new features as well as a couple different breaking changes. And secondarily would be the implementation of Libman, a Microsoft-owned tool to help with JavaScript dependency management, which is basically, in short, a way of getting all your tools and keeping them in one big toolbox. So, with that being said, Alex.
Hello, my name is Alex. So to start off, the reason why I chose to apply to be part of the SLED project is because, as you kind of saw in my intro, I have a lot of front end experience, but I really want to delve deeper into the back end. And what I mean by front end and back end, for those who aren't familiar, like front end is the visual and interactive part of a web app. So that's going to be like your buttons and the text on a screen. And the back end is like the behind the scenes logic that handles the database, or like handles all the data getting served to the user. I worked on a bunch of different uh, parts throughout my 16-week term, but the thing that I would like to focus on primarily is pagination that took place on the schedule page. So what pagination is, it's a way to break up a lot of information into smaller, more manageable chunks. This is done by taking a huge list and just making pages out of it. So you can kind of see this in the diagram to the right. So I'm sure you guys have all experienced this with like an infinite scroll on a mobile device. Well, this just removes the infinite scroll and allows you to select pages at the bottom. That's all that pagination is. So I added this slide because I wanted to show you how complex the system is. Usually pagination is something that can be implemented in a sprint. However, we jumped onto an existing code base that had years of development on it prior to this. And you can kind of see there's a ton of moving parts, and this is only part of the code that I had to work on. It introduced a lot of complexity and made me spend way longer than a single sprint working on this, but I'm very proud of the outcome. So all of that code does, it seemed pretty overwhelming, but it actually just does this. So as you can kind of see, this is the schedule page for the system. Usually, and before I jumped in there would have been hundreds of these list items. In the test database, there was 87, and I'm sure the actual database is probably hundreds, if not thousands, of these course offerings. So you can imagine trying to scroll through infinitely. As you can see now, you can see that there is a set of page numbers. So page 1 of 3, and you can just click next, and it would just bring you to the next set of data. So something that did get introduced into this is the fact that if you're paging and you know that your item is on the last page, you don't want to have to click 5, 10, 15 times. So you can actually search by course code. As you can see in this GIF that I provided, I type in the number 107, and it filters down the list to just 2 items. And actually, one of the items is taught by our very own SLED team member, Dante. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to him.
All right, like you said, my name is Dante, and my main role on this project was working on the faculty side of the application, which normally has a lot more traffic than the administrator side because it's used by every faculty member here at WCTC. So on the slide, you can see what the course list selector looked like prior to us getting this project. There's a few like visual bugs that you can see. For example, on the desktop view, there's that white line on the assess button, which I wanted to remove. Also, the word assess isn't actually centered in the button, which I'm sure would annoy a lot of people if they realize that. And then when you hover on each of the individual cards, there's some distracting hover animations that happen that's just not very good for usability. So going on to the next slide, my goal was to ensure that the UI was cohesive across desktop and mobile views, and that's what you're going to see on the right side is the mobile view. So those small inconsistencies that I touched on earlier, I largely removed, as well as I expanded the progress bar to take full width of the card. And then on the mobile view, I also separated the assess and the complete button icon to make sure that the user knows that if they click the assess button, they're going on to a new page. So then moving on to actually assessing the students, the main functionality of this program, there wasn't many changes that were needed on this page, except for one major one, which was that the drop-down menus now are defaulted to be open, which just saves a bunch of clicks going between each individual outcome you would have to click every single time to keep assessing students. So moving on to the back end, I'm going to try to briefly go over this, not too much detail, but the main thing that I did was I converted all of that student graining that I was talking about from ASP.NET to AJAX. And essentially all that means is that instead of using ASP.NET, which in order to update the database in the backend would have required a refresh every single time you want to, we converted it to AJAX, which allowed the form to autosave without the need for a refresh. So the left panel shows the JavaScript logic that sends updates and handles those errors, which I'll go into more detail in the next couple slides. And then on the back end, which is that right panel, I just refactored a bunch of the code and cleaned it up to make sure that it worked with AJAX. So going over to the actual error handling on the next slide, This shows what it should look like if you're able to connect to the database and nothing's broken. So like I said, the submit button is somewhat redundant because we are auto-saving the form. So if you refresh the page, then all of the things auto-save, but you can also click the submit button and it gives you a little pop-up to say, hey, all of your inputs were successfully sent to the database. So then if there is no connection, which is the next slide, you can see that if you click one of the buttons to grade a student, the program basically rejects your input and gives you a little error message. And then even if you try to brute force it and click submit, it also shows up an error message to let you know that the database did not get any of your inputs. So that is the majority of what I had. I'll throw it over to Julia now.
And by Julia, he means me, because we moved myself around in the slide. Sorry, Dante. So the bulk of my time was spent remodeling this modal window here, a modal window basically being a little pop-up, which keeps you on the same page, but presents you with new information. And I not only had to remodel this first tab, but also completely implement the second one. The goal was to allow bulk editing of schedules for any given course. So then here is a rendition of the new version in GIF format once again. After some time and better understanding, I realized that the existing modal was not entirely flawed, as I had initially thought. It was merely my understanding of the code base which was flawed, really. But it did lack the robustness to handle some different edge cases, one of which I would say, or one of which I found very important would be the varying of different sections, as sometimes not all sections share all of the assigned outcomes. So what I did there is I implemented a little popover, which you can both show and dismiss, and select which sections that is intended to apply to. And then, of course, there's also the search on the right side of the panel, which the previous version only showed full assessments and not just outcomes, but I thought it might make more sense to include both, which it now does. And then I also use debouncing, which is effectively a way to wait for the user to stop typing to limit the effect on the database while keeping the user experience clean and efficient. And then finally, Nikki asked me to work on a new system for setting the open and close dates. I had a second version which allowed you to use different relative points. So here you can see it's days before course close, and days after course close. I had a second version which allowed you to switch from a couple different ones, but in the end, it didn't seem particularly important when a manual date entry would cover that kind of base case in the first place. So now, for real this time, without further ado, we have Julia.
Thank you. All right, so my focus for a good portion of the semester was on improvements within the assessments, the assessment detail page, which the main function of this page was to create and organize outcomes and criteria for the selected assessment. So as you can see, I was first able to update the button names to just more globally recognizable icons with tooltips that will appear when you hover over them, which I can show you more of in a bit. This just helps keep it more clean and concise. And then on the next page, I have the first big functionality that I was able to implement was this feature. There we go. A feature that allows each criteria within a outcome to be draggable and droppable so that they can be reordered. And I was able to assign an icon to this so that that will be the trigger of the functionality. And on the next page, as promised, these are my tooltips. I was able to keep the consistent styling from the rest of the program. Just one thing I struggled a bit with this was the technical functionality, because most of these already are triggering another element. So I had to do a little styling workaround to make sure that they were appearing above the icons. And then lastly, on the next slide, I was able to rework some outdated features and elements that were creating some design issues. And I was able to do this by kind of implementing a new autocomplete input dropdown that I had styled myself because of some issues I was hitting with that. And then another thing I noticed along the way was that the outcomes didn't display right away if you just clicked one of the inputs. So I was able to add this little enter button on the right side as well. And moving on. That brings us to the end. So we want to thank you all again for listening, and we will accept questions.
I'm going to jump in real quick as the product owner. So this is a little bit of a unique scenario. I am the instructor on the course, but I've been working with the SLED project since we started it about 7 years ago. And I have to say that out of all 7 years that we've been working on this group just really kind of understood the concept better than any of the other groups have in the past. And when they said, this is what this does, I've never seen a group so succinctly sum up what this application stands for and why it's here. So because of that, it was really easy to work with this group because they all just seemed to get what it was supposed to do. And we did a lot of work polishing this up to get this ready to test to see if we can roll out the new version after we make sure there's no bugs. So thank you, team, for making this a really easy semester for me and not having to explain what SLED is and what SLED does for 16 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. We do appreciate it.
Very glowing praise. Not to say that there weren't any hiccups, of course, but your support was greatly appreciated as well. Well, there you are, Karen. Hello.
Hi, everyone. I actually wanted to jump in next. I have to say, first of all, your presentation skills, awesome, fantastic. You guys all did a phenomenal job on that. But I was actually very impressed with the progress that you guys made, especially given what I can only imagine is very complex code, right? Like it all seems simple when we see it in little pictures. I don't understand any of the code pieces, and I can only imagine how complex that likely was. Every piece that you guys shared, each one of you shared a piece that I was very impressed with from the very beginning when you guys talked about pagination. You said something like, this is actually really simple, and I thought, but it's really probably not, right? The actual development of it was probably not simple at all. It looks simple and it's awesome, but that was probably not simple work. I also really liked the way you simplified it for faculty. I thought that was very nicely done. I think faculty will appreciate those rollouts. The different search features using course codes and all of those pieces. At the end, really essentially you're simplifying it and making it make sense in ways that I think Nikki is absolutely right. Other groups have not been able to do. So you all did a phenomenal job, and you should be very proud of your work.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome.
With that being said, are there any questions from the crowd? We'd love to hear them.
I think I missed it. So, are you able to roll out this version, or is it still in testing mode? Does like another team need to work on it yet?
At the moment, I believe they're probably going to go through another development cycle. Nikki, I believe, has something to say on this. Is that right?
I think we've got all the features in, and now I need to put it to testing and run it through the paces. So we'll see where it ends up, but we're really close.
Awesome.
Anyone else?
So this project is a little more, I would say, unique in what you had to do than the other ones because you're updating, a whole system. So what kind of challenges did you find with that that really maybe tested your knowledge base?
I would argue a big part of that was uh, not to bash anybody involved because development is a difficult thing, but when we took on the project, a number of the libraries used, particularly Bootstrap, were very fractured in a sense. There was multiple different versions of Bootstrap included in multiple different files, and the biggest part was definitely unifying that all together, which caused a number of breaking changes. Which we were actually able to largely resolve within the first couple weeks after the fact, but there was definitely some lingering things that we didn't notice until much later that really tripped us up. That's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and what's great is you guys are just setting up the next team to have an even more robust system to work with. So even though you might not feel like you put anything like super exciting and you knew like amazing features, even though there was awesome work done, you're still really setting up the future groups that are working on this and obviously all of the faculty that rely on this. So excellent job.
Of course.
I'll ask one. What was your favorite part of this project?
Since I've answered all the questions so far, I'll let one of my team members take this one.
I could take it if if you guys want me to start. For me, it was the aha moments. So I felt like there was a lot of times that I'm kind of just struggling in the weeds of the code and I'm just not really understanding what I'm working on. And then there's like a bolt of lightning from Zeus just hitting me. Just to kind of explain like all the stuff that I worked on kind of results into this thing. Now I kind of understand what is happening in the code base. It was like constant aha moments. It'd be like a week of struggle and then like a week of clarity. So that was really cool to see.
All right, I
It
guess
is a
I'll take
bit.
a stab at it next. Oh, sorry.
No, you're
Take a
all good.
stab at it next. I think that my favorite part was working on a pretty major project like SLED. I obviously through school I haven't necessarily worked on a major project except for projects that I've worked on for a long period of time. I haven't worked on a project with a bunch of other people, especially not a project as old as 7 years, although we are migrating for some of that. So I think that was the most fun part, knowing that this is going to make like an impact on a lot of people and that I was able to get a lot more comfortable with backend because I was able to see a lot more code from a lot of other groups.
I would have to say my favorite part would be trying out new UI, user interface, features and stuff, and seeing kind of how easy and difficult newer like jQuery UI features are.
Yeah. I would say personally, just to wrap everything up, I would say working with previous people's codes, as much as it made me want to, I don't know, do some horrible things. Uh, I can't say enough how much of a learning experience that was, and how much it really helped me understand how going forward, because in 90% of situations when you're going to a new job, you're not starting something up from scratch. You're taking on an existing project, and you have to understand that, and you have to work within the confines of your existing system.
All right, SLED team. Thank you very much. Yay.
Again, thanks everybody. We do really
Yes.
appreciate it. So thank you.
Any final general questions for the teams as a whole? I know, Brittany, you usually like to ask one of the group at the end, not to necessarily put you on the spot. If you don't want to, that's okay. But
I was just going to say these are some of my favorite faces of students that I've had over so many different classes from the wee beginnings. So it's just so exciting to see you all grow and prosper and do amazing things and make it to the end. So that's why I always make a point to be here at the Capstone presentations because I love to watch you all fly. So excellent job and super proud of you all. You should all be very proud of the work you've done.
thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to first apologize that I had to run out for a little bit in the first two, but just what an incredible job you guys all did. So talented. Wish you guys all the best. Was really great to watch all these projects, and just another big thank you to Nikki, Brittany, Patrick, and Allie for all your support for our students. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This concludes the presentations. Woohoo, we're done. So students, please stick around for final items, and everyone else, thank you for attending and supporting us all. Have a great night. Stay dry.
Bye, everyone.
Have a
I
good
think
night,
there's
everybody.
a tree down like in front of my house. I'm gonna go check it out.
Ooh, good luck.
Bye.